We are with Dr. Stephen Gundry. He's the author of a new book. It's called The Plant Paradox.
Best book I've seen on diet ever.
He's the New York Times best-selling author who shook up and straightened out what people thought they knew about food.
This book is really quite extraordinary.
Food controls everything that happens to us.
Such an interesting topic, and this is so controversial. I know people at home right now are saying, I cannot believe what I'm hearing.
After years of research, I came to believe that there was one thing that was the #1 danger to our bodies.
Dr. Stephen Gundry first entered the public eye while performing groundbreaking surgeries.
A lot of people just let these babies go because the road ahead is huge.
One screw up and you don't get second chances.
That's the good news for this afternoon.
Then an unexpected encounter forced him to make a U-turn.
He came home and said, I met this strangest man.
Here's a guy that made me question every bit of conventional wisdom I was ever taught.
This is the remarkable journey of a medical pioneer.
And he explained that, he was on this quest.
He would rather not have to operate on people. He'd rather be able to heal them without surgery.
Dr. Stephen Gundry is, to me, one of a kind.
He confronted an onslaught of obstacles.
I was actually told I couldn't be a heart surgeon because I was too nice a guy.
And he was wearing larger and larger clothes. It was not a good period for him.
And finally reached a life-changing revelation.
I can probably help more people by teaching them how to eat than I will ever be able to help just cutting them open.
I felt so much healthier. I would never go back to the way I ate before.
He literally saved my life.
Dr. Stephen Gundry is a man on a mission to put us back on track to better health.
It is never too late.
(1995). An air ambulance lands in Southern California as part of a desperate life-or-death mission. Dr. Stephen Gundry disembarks, carrying a tiny human heart intended for a critically ill infant. Baby Matthew clings to life, suffering from a defective heart that's quickly failing.
The left ventricle is certainly present.
Racing against time, Dr. Gundry and his team prepare to operate. But as they begin, baby Matthew's weak heart suddenly quits. Few people are more qualified to save the infant's life than this medical pioneer dedicated to the workings of the heart. Dr. Gundry's road to this moment started decades earlier in the city of Omaha, Nebraska.
I was blessed with really two perfect parents. My mother was valedictorian of her high school class. She went on to become a housewife. She actually invested a huge amount of time in both of her kids, my sister and myself, but I have very vivid memories of sitting on the living room couch every night with flashcards, with memorizing math problems and memorizing words. My father was blessed with also incredibly intelligent, but blessed with the ability that he thought every person he ever met was the most interesting person and wanted to hear their entire story. He eventually went on to become not only an insurance salesman, but then rose without a college education to become executive vice president of the chairman's office of Mutual of Omaha Insurance. I started thinking about becoming a doctor when I was 10 years old, and there was a book in our library called All About You, and it was about the human body. And I read that book, and that day I decided I was going to be a doctor.
By the time he entered high school, Gundry often tagged along with a family friend who was a local doctor.
He would go to the surrounding communities around Omaha where they actually didn't have any surgeons, and he'd take me with them, and we'd make rounds and even go into the operating room, and he'd tell people that I was a medical student at the University of Nebraska, which I wasn't.
Good grades earned Gundry a place in the freshman class at Yale University. As a pre-med student, he wrote the first of many research studies, including one on what constituted the ideal human diet.
My paper at Yale was to find out the original diet that made humans humans. And little would I know that this paper would become incredibly important to both myself and tens of thousands of patients years later.
In his off hours, Gundry pursued a favorite hobby.
I was lucky enough to actually have a pretty good voice, singing voice as well. And my second year I tried out for and got accepted to one of, I thought, the premier groups called the Baker's Dozen. Every spring break, we would drive down to Miami and work our way down the coast singing. And then we'd fly over to Jamaica and singing basically for our supper in front of an audience at the various resorts in Jamaica. We were singing last night at Half Moon Resort, and we're all in our white dinner jackets with beautiful feathery white shirts with black stripes. And in the front row, a beautiful young girl who was sitting next to her parents.
He just stood out to me, and it was just an immediate eye connection. I said, oh my goodness, that's a very handsome man, and I could not take my eyes off of him.
After the performance was over, I went over to their table, and I knew full well that if I wanted to get to know this young lady, I needed to get to know her mother better. So I began speaking with her mother.
He came over and sat at my table, and we started to talk, and ended up spending most of the evening getting to know one another.
And spent the entire night talking to each other. And I dropped her off at her room at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to fly back to leave for Yale. Now, she was going to school at the University of California, Santa Barbara, which was on the opposite coast. And at that time, my parents and I were living in Atlanta, Georgia. So this looked pretty bad, but she walked back in her parents' room, woke them up, and she said, I just met the man I'm going to marry. And I told my parents the same thing.
And we had a long-distance romance. We spent quite a bit of time together in the summer. Then he got into medical school, and we just kind of went our separate ways.
Stephen Gundry turned his focus back to his training, first at the Medical College of Georgia, and then at the University of Michigan, where he entered residency. Gundry chose his specialty, heart surgery.
I got really interested in the heart because really the only way to fix them is surgical repair. I had a lot of interest in art as a child and architecture. My grandfather was a builder and an architect. And I thought the idea of rebuilding something that needed complete manipulation and there weren't any lines and drawings to guide you was a good use of my talents in art.
However, Gundry's first surgeries rattled the young doctor's nerves.
My professor was across from me, and we were doing a coronary bypass, and he'd go, would you stop shaking? And I said, well, if you'd stop telling me to stop shaking, maybe I wouldn't shake so much. And it's a true story. So, when you're in the position where, somebody's life, particularly the heart, is in your hands and is in your skill, it's nerve-wracking for the first few times. I was actually told I couldn't be a heart surgeon because I was too nice a guy. We're told that a heart surgeon is a fighter pilot, that you have to be an Iceman and have ice flowing through your veins, because heart surgery, more than any other surgery, it's always life or death. One screw up and you don't get second chances. Yeah, I was told I was too nice a guy. The good news is, during the surgery, I got ice running through my veins.
Gundry managed to settle himself down, growing comfortable handling both the pressure and a scalpel.
Most of us, if we're lucky, get into what's called a flow state, where we actually don't think. Everything just flows through our hands.
Throughout his career, Dr. G, as he's affectionately known by his patients, maintained a never-ending passion for medical research.
Out of the box, I always wanted to figure out how things worked and why they worked the way they did, and that just fascinated me.
In 1978, Dr. Gundry was offered the position of clinical associate at the prestigious National Institutes of Health. His job, research living systems to find new ways to keep people healthy. These fresh insights inspired him to invent a variety of surgical devices.
I developed a method that was safer to protect the heart during heart surgery, and it eventually became, and still is, the world's most widely used device to protect the heart during open heart surgery.
As his skills grew, others began taking notice of the young surgeon. In 1985, he earned a fellowship at London's famed Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children.
You're usually there to observe both grand professors and learn, how they do it. Learn their craft, and if you're lucky, you'll get asked to start an operation. The sister, the nurse, said, "Mr. Gundry, Mr. Stark, would like you to kindly start the operation." And I said, "Start the operation?" She said, "Means he trusts you."
Dr. Gundry's surgical talents grew to include highly complex heart transplants. In one groundbreaking operation, he and his team performed the longest surviving pig-to-baboon heart transplant in history, a surgery with major implications.
Well, it gives the possibility that sometime in the future that we can use a pig heart, and we use their valves every day in regular surgery. We could use a pig as a replacement for a human heart because we just don't have enough human hearts to go around.
By this time, Dr. Gundry was married and the father of 2 daughters, Melissa and Elizabeth. The girls discovered that Dad was an in-demand guest at their school show and tell day.
And so when we were studying the human body in grade school, my teacher would invite him to come speak to the class and show a video of heart surgery. And usually half the class were fascinated, half the class was completely grossed out, and a few almost fainted. So it was always fun.
In 1991, Dr. Gundry took over as chairman of cardiothoracic surgery at California's renowned Loma Linda University Medical Center. The hospital was one of the few that specialized in heart transplants for the very young.
Once his heart grew, we were able to repair the other defects in his heart and build him a new aorta to carry blood to his body.
As a team, Gundry and his partner, Dr. Leonard Bailey, hold the world record for performing the most infant and child heart transplants.
In many of the cases, it's clearly a life or death situation.
One of the most dramatic proved to be the 1995 surgery involving an infant known as Baby Matthew. Mary Krugler Russell was the baby's anxious mother.
I tried to get pregnant for years, a long time, and had actually given up at 41 years old, and Matt came along. It was just a gift. I did not know he had a problem till the morning he was born. And the doctor came in to do his routine examination, and then he was gone a long time. When she came back, she said, "I got really bad news for you."
Baby Matthew's heart was defective, missing the vital left ventricle. Surgery was an extreme long shot, and even if successful, his quality of life did not look promising.
So then it was a decision of what to do. We had cardiologists come in and say, a lot of people just let these babies go because the road ahead is huge. And then all I had to do was look at him. I only held him that one morning, and then I wasn't allowed to hold him again for another week because he had all the intubated on respirators and all this stuff. So that was kind of a hard time. But the more I saw him and the more I saw how hard he was fighting to stay alive, the more I couldn't take that away from him.
Mary and her husband met with Dr. Gundry.
I mostly just remember he just felt very confident. If you're in a car accident and a trauma surgeon, you don't want one that goes, "Oh, should I do this or shouldn't?" You want one that just says, "This is what I need to do, period." And that's just the way he was. But also he's a very kind person. He was nice.
They made the decision to undertake a heart transplant. As baby Matthew struggled to stay alive, a frantic search for a donor began. The family's hunt for a new heart caught the attention of the media.
A newborn in desperate need of a heart transplant has been moved to Loma Linda University Medical Center.
Finally, after a torturous 3-week wait, news.
And they found a heart of a 6-month-old child that had some issues.
But the donor was on the East Coast, 2,400 miles away. So Dr. Gundry and his team leapt into action, flying cross-country to retrieve the organ.
And they harvest the heart there. They want to do it themselves because they want to know exactly how they're cutting it, what they're doing to it, what it looks like.
The team immediately flew back to California. Gundry himself carried the heart inside a cooler straight to the operating room. Mary and her husband said goodbye to their son as nurses prepared to wheel him into the operating room.
And his color was always a little blue, just not quite right because you're not pumping blood very well.
But just as Dr. Gundry and the team ready to start the surgery, a sudden crisis erupted.
We walked into the operating room and we found out, unfortunately, that baby Matthew's own heart had stopped beating, literally as we walked through the door.
He had a cardiac arrest on the table, and I didn't find that out till later. I don't think I really wanted to know that while it was being done. So they had to do CPR and keep him alive until they could get him onto the bypass, and then they could take that heart out and put the new one in.
After restarting Matthew's heart, the team faced their next challenge.
We had to rebuild baby Matthew's aorta, which is the main blood vessel that carries blood from the heart to the body, because that was also malformed when he was born.
After 3 tense hours, nurses rolled out the infant to his anxious and waiting parents.
And I remember when he got off the elevator, he was pink. I just remember looking at him, he was bright, beautiful pink. I cried. He's been a phenomenal blessing. And none of that would happen without what Dr. Gundry did. None of it.
That's the difference?
Yeah. Isn't that look at the difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, you were pink, 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 all over.
This is Matthew today. He's a proud college graduate who knew exactly what life-changing experience to write about for his school's essay requirement.
So I wrote about how without the heart transplant, without Gundry, I wouldn't be able to do these things. I wouldn't be able to go fishing. I wouldn't be able to play sports. I wouldn't be able to, coach my brother's basketball team, which I did the year before I went to college. I wouldn't be here. The things I've done wouldn't have happened without him.
To take a child, a fresh newborn who had no future, and then, if everything goes right, give them a future, nothing better than that.
That year, Dr. Gundry sat down for a series of national TV interviews.
People talk about adrenaline rushes that they get from sports activities. I guess it's the equivalent of bungee jumping for me.
One appearance caught the attention of a surprised old girlfriend.
And I was in my kitchen in Atlanta doing the dishes, and I looked at the TV and saw that there was Steve Gundry. I said, oh my goodness, there's the love of my life.
So let's get back to Penny. She and Dr. Gundry met 25 years earlier after locking eyes at a concert in Jamaica. The two decided that night that they would be married, but after 3 years of long-distance dating, things came to a head.
Steve was going to medical school in Georgia, and I was living in Santa Barbara, California. And he came out to Santa Barbara and asked me to marry him.
And she said, well, look, if you want to get married, you got to move out here to California. And I said, well, you don't understand how hard it was in those days to get into medical school, number one, and I'm thankful to get in. Number two, there's no medical school in Santa Barbara. And number three, I hate California. It's like Florida with cold water.
And I truly believed that I lived in paradise, and the idea of moving anywhere was just really a difficult decision to make. So I said, right now you're just geographically undesirable because I love where I'm living so much.
And so we actually kind of shook hands and said, good luck to each other.
Went our separate ways, and I was sure that in a few days Steve was going to call me and say, I've made a terrible mistake and I will transfer medical schools out to the West Coast just to be near you, but that just never happened.
Now, as she tells the story, she fully expected that when I got home to Georgia, I would call her and say, wouldn't you reconsider? But I took her at her word.
In the 2 decades since then, Penny pursued her own passions. She traveled the world as a Pan Am flight attendant before transitioning into a career as a successful real estate agent. After seeing her old boyfriend on TV, she wrote him a note and mailed it to California.
My secretary is watching me read this, and she said, well, what's going on? And I said, Barbara, this is the love of my life. What should I do? Now, I might add that I was separated from my wife, and Penny was separated from her husband, and so she said, well, call her. And we're exchanging pleasantries and catching up, and what are you doing in Atlanta? And well, what are you doing in California? And things were just pleasant. And then I said something, and she said, oh, Gundry. It was like somebody had wiped 20 years off the clock. We've been together ever since.
They're perfect. They're meant to be. Yeah, it's really neat to see that they're soulmates through and through.
Penny did notice one new aspect of her guy. He was gaining a substantial amount of weight.
He was a pretty big boy at that period in time, and he was not happy with himself. He loved to eat. He loved to drink fine wine, and he just seemed to blossom, and he was wearing larger and larger clothes, and it was not a good period for him.
Gundry's weight issues really hit home at an annual holiday show where the younger doctors poked fun at their bosses.
The person who played me actually had a pillow stuffed under their white lab coat, and apparently that was what I looked like.
Dr. Gundry tried to shed those pounds, but with no success.
And that was despite running 30 miles a week and going to the gym 1 hour a day. And I was eating a healthy low-fat diet, which was what you were supposed to do. And I drank 8 diet sodas every day. And I was 70 pounds overweight. And I had high blood pressure and pre-diabetes and high cholesterol and arthritis and migraine headaches. And it was so frustrating because I was doing what everybody says was the right thing to do, eating healthy, and here I was, obese.
Steve came home, I'll never forget it, he came home from the hospital one evening and said, I met the strangest man that has such a strange story to tell.
Well, when I met Big Ed, Big Ed was big. He weighed 265 pounds when I met him. And he really looked kind of like our image of a biker, kind of unshaven, ponytail, a big beer gut. And he was 48 years old, and he had been diagnosed with inoperable coronary artery disease. All his blood vessels were narrowed so much with plaque that you couldn't put stents in them, you couldn't do bypasses. And he brought an angiogram from Miami of 6 months earlier, and I agreed with everybody else who had seen him around the United States that there wasn't anything I was going to do for him. And then he tells me that he'd been on diet and had lost 45 pounds in 6 months. Now, this is a very large man looking at me, but that means he weighed over 300 pounds before this started. And he had taken a bunch of supplements from a health food store. I said, well, good for you for losing weight. And I know what you did with all those supplements. You made expensive urine, and you didn't do anything for your heart. And he said, well, why don't we get another angiogram and look? So we did. And this guy in 6 months' time cleaned out 50% of the blockages in his heart. And it was so remarkable. And the researcher in me got so interested and said, how is that possible? I'm taught that that's impossible. And, you know, Carl Sagan always used to say that the key for any progress is you at some point have to question conventional wisdom.
Steve started looking into supplements and asking questions about some of the supplements that Big Ed had been on. It was a turning point for Steve.
Dr. G flashed back to his early Yale University research paper that he wrote about the original human diet.
Food controls everything that happens to us. It controlled even how we evolved, and it's naive to think that the impact of food doesn't control everything, because you can look at societies that don't eat the way we do, and they have no heart disease, they have no cancer, they have no diabetes, they have no arthritis. It's because they fundamentally eat completely different than we do. And we have to return to those fundamental principles.
Gundry believes many Western doctors are in the dark when it comes to explaining why each decade more and more people are getting sick.
There is very, very little nutrition taught in medical school. You get about a 30-minute lecture, and nutrition was not to tell you what foods were good or what foods were bad, but to merely tell you what a protein was, to tell you what a fat was, and to tell you what a carbohydrate was. And that was the nutrition course. That's it.
Dr. Gundry created his own meal plan, which went back to the basics of the early human diet.
We were supposed to eat a lot of leaves. We did eat a lot of leaves. And we ate a lot of resistant starches, things like tubers, sweet potatoes, for instance. And we actually ate a lot of oils, particularly olives have been used for over 5,000 years, and olive oil has been around for 5,000 years.
He also eliminated a number of newer foods that are native to North America. Gundry believes many can be difficult for our digestive systems to process.
Some of our most beloved foods we have no business eating because they're modern foods. Things like corn, things like tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, peanuts, cashews. These are totally foreign to what we've ever been exposed to until 500 years ago.
Dr. Gundry then became his own guinea pig.
I tested my own theories by actually putting myself to the test. And so I changed eating lots of leafy greens. I ate wild fish and wild shellfish, and I really eliminated meats like beef and pork.
Inspired by his encounter with Big Ed, Dr. G also added supplements to his new diet.
I believe that we've had a huge lack of the basic nutritional supplements that we used to get from the plants that we ate on a rotating basis. Those plants were grown in soil were rich in micronutrients and minerals. We know now that our soil is completely devoid of those minerals and micronutrients. So you could eat healthy and never actually get the nutrients that you need.
Throughout the experiment, Dr. Gundry regularly sent his blood work to a lab at the University of California, Berkeley. The results stunned him.
For instance, I had been told that I was genetically incapable of making good cholesterol and that I was genetically going to make a lot of bad cholesterol because my father was the same way. And imagine my shock that my good cholesterol levels more than tripled, and that's impossible. And my LDL, my bad cholesterol, plummeted, all because I changed the foods I ate and all because I started taking supplements.
And then there was the matter of his weight.
We'd go shopping for clothes, and the size of the shirts and the pants were decreasing, which was a nice indication.
We're like, what are you doing? You know, I mean, it was just radical to us.
I wound up losing 50 pounds my first year and subsequently lost another 20, and I've kept it off now for 17 years.
After seeing what a more effective diet combined with supplements could accomplish, Dr. Gundry reassessed his personal path in medicine. He realized he needed to go in a new direction.
The decision to leave Loma Linda, my wife still calls it Black Friday, and I was very famous for redo heart surgeries. You know, every 4 or 5 or 7 years, somebody would need a new surgery. because none of us had ever taught him how to eat. And I really felt in my heart that it would probably mean a pay cut, but I could probably benefit more people by teaching them how to eat.
It was a very stressful time because he was leaving the established practice to really set up this institute in Palm Springs, and there were a lot of unknowns at the time, so it was quite stressful for both of us.
And he explained that, he was on this quest.
He would rather not have to operate on people. He'd rather be able to heal them without surgery. You know why Dr. Gundry has a t-shirt that says, "No more Mr. Knife Guy."
The mission of the International Heart and Lung Institute started off by teaching people how to reverse or avoid coronary artery disease, heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. But as time has gone on, the mission has really evolved to have people take back control of their health. And one of the important things is it is never too late.
It was almost too late for Frank Farino. This former television director suffered from major heart problems.
I went to a recommended cardiologist. He ran a bevy of tests and said to me, "You've got a mild case of AFib." He said, and I'd suggest a medication and basically go home and learn to live with it.
Fortunately, Farino got a second opinion from Dr. G.
Dr. Gundry looked at the same tests and looked me in the eye and said, if it were me, quote, I would have an angiogram. And I said, well, if that's what you recommend. And the angiogram showed a 90% blockage in my right coronary artery. I was a walking heart attack. And I got stented and had other blockage, not as much in other arteries, and went on his diet and had those turn around. And I've been living that now for the last 10 years.
Farino enjoys the benefits of following the doctor's food philosophy.
On the Gundry diet, I woke up one day and 25 pounds were gone. I have not put them back. I don't feel I've deprived myself of anything.
Among Dr. Gundry's protocols, eat less meat and only certain kinds.
The early man didn't eat a lot of meat. We actually ate shellfish and seafood if we were going to eat an animal protein. We did, for a time period, use animal meat, very true, but those animals were actually eating grass and leaves. They weren't being fed corn and beans and grains. We use these to fatten these animals up for slaughter. And unfortunately, they're not designed to eat these foods. And if they eat these foods, they're no longer a chicken or a cow or a pig. They're a big ear of corn or a pile of soybeans. And we know that when we eat those animals, it actually fattens us up just as we fatten them up.
And so he literally saved my life.
Voila. Dr. Gundry's radical ideas on health and nutrition inspired him to write what became a 2008 best-selling book.
Dr. Gundry's Diet Evolution: Turn Off the Genes That Are Killing You and Your Waistline and Lose the Weight for Good.
It spread like wildfire. It was really cool.
The book's huge popularity drew celebrities to Dr. Gundry's practice, including motivational guru Tony Robbins.
He's a very gregarious person and wants to know people, very much like my father. And so we're talking and he says, okay, Doc, explain all this to me. What do you do? How do you do it? And we finished. He says, you're the real deal. So I want you to be my doctor. And so we've been together ever since in that way.
We got this, we got your back, we can handle it.
In fact, Tony Robbins regularly invites Dr. Gundry to speak on nutrition at his massive live seminars.
Well, one of the other things about Dr. Gundry is he is a big believer in supplement as opposed to prescribed medication.
So my experience with Big Ed and then with myself and my early patients convinced me that supplements are what you need, not medications. And I want to change people to supplements and get rid of their medications. And that's a real shift in how modern medicine works. And the more I had people take supplements, and follow the diet, the more we got rid of their medications.
After the success of his first book, supplement manufacturers lined up wanting to team up with Dr. Gundry, but all they wanted to do was to put his name on the products they were already selling.
I said, but that's not right. And they said, oh, doctor, come on, that's how it's done. And I had resisted this because I didn't want to take existing supplements and put my name on it. I actually wanted to design what I thought was the best combination. And companies didn't want to do that. It was too much work. So the amazing thing is when my partner now at Gundry MD asked me, what if you could design every supplement? What if you could control what went into the supplement? What if you could control where the ingredients come from? Would you be interested?
Dr. G was. He went back to the research lab and began developing supplements that could help and support people in achieving their health goals.
When we get up in the morning, it's like, who's going to go get the Vital Reds first, even before we get in the shower? Because it gives you energy. It just makes you feel better, you know, to start the day.
And I'm so excited because I feel different in my body. I have different energy. And my colleagues are telling me, God, you lost so much weight.
I take a few with breakfast, a few with lunch, a few with dinner, a few before I go to bed. I don't think twice about it. I love it.
When he wasn't seeing patients, Dr. G often returned to his research. One fact continued to trouble him.
Quite frankly, societies that don't eat the way we eat, don't have coronary artery disease, don't have high blood pressure, don't have arthritis, don't have Alzheimer's disease. After years of research, I came to believe that there was one thing that was the #1 danger to our bodies, and that was lectins. Plants don't want to be eaten. Lectins are a part of the plant defense system. They're sticky proteins that the plant uses to wage chemical warfare on their predators.
Example, when insects try to eat plants containing lectins, they get sick and can even suffer paralysis. When humans consume lectins, trouble can also follow.
Well, I believe that some lectins can be bad for us because research has proven that lectins can actually disrupt the lining of our gut, that lectins can actually climb the major nerve from our gut to our brain and cause Parkinson's disease, and you can prove that lectins can coagulate people's blood and get into their joints and cause arthritis.
And lectins can be found in all kinds of foods.
So all grains contain lectins. The squash family contain lectins. Peanuts and cashews contain lectins. Even sunflower seeds and chia seeds contain lectins, unfortunately.
This new information inspired Dr. Gundry to write his second book, 2017's The Plant Paradox.
And one of the things that maybe makes me different than most authors in nutrition is I'm willing to change my mind when I see new data, because I'm a researcher. I said, I got to write a new book, and I've got to tell people that this is what I've discovered in the last 10 years.
The Plant Paradox contains helpful recommendations, including how to get around the problem of eating lectin-rich foods.
Traditional cultures have always figured out a way to lessen lectin harm. For instance, the nightshade family, which are bell peppers and tomatoes and potatoes and eggplant. Traditional cultures have always peeled and de-seeded these fruits, and the Italians always peel and de-seed their tomatoes before they make sauce.
His extensive research also led Dr. Gundry to the personal belief that people should cut down on fruit consumption in order to reduce their sugar intake.
We used fruit for one reason and one reason only, and that was to fatten up for the winter.
Wow.
And so we have to eat fruit seasonally when it's in our season.
These startling views helped drive The Plant Paradox up the New York Times bestseller chart. Media outlets wanted to hear more.
I mean, this is a must-read. This is very good.
I'm so excited by this information.
All the attention has led to a 6-month waiting list at Dr. Gundry's practices in both Palm Springs and Santa Barbara. His staff gets a kick at how giddy a few of the patients become around the doctor.
The first part of her visit was her gushing over the fact that she can't believe she's standing in the presence of Dr. Stephen Gundry. You know, that he's a real man.
My wife is my grounding force, and she always says, you got to remember that you're just little Stevie Gundry from Omaha, Nebraska. And in the end, I am just little Stevie Gundry from Omaha, Nebraska. If people see me as a way to get their health back, then, I accept that mission.
Away from the office, Dr. G has a wide variety of interests.
He's a real softy for animals, especially dogs. He's a real dog lover.
He's a collector of fine wines. Of course, is traveling. When we travel, it's never sit by the pool and enjoy the views. We'll get to our destination and we're immediately changing our shoes and going hiking, going exploring. We never sit still. And of course, research.
That penchant keeps Dr. Gundry always evolving. He keeps looking for new insights involving health and longevity.
One thing he always told me was he doesn't like the answer, I don't know. So if you ask him something, or if somebody comes up with a strange illness or whatever, he's not going to say, I don't know. He'll say, gee, I've never heard of that before, or something like that. And he say, but I'm going to check it out.
He will do research at any time of day. He'll do it in front of the TV. When he first wakes up in the morning, we'll be taking a walk, and his mind will all of a sudden click on something, and he has to get on his phone and get an answer.
He can't help himself. He's driven. He's so driven.
Yeah, people say, well, when are you going to retire? And the answer is never. 2 reasons. Number one, I've inherited my father's like of people, and I never tire of meeting a new person and hearing their story. But number 2, there's no better sensation than watching a person with a problem get rid of that problem by following some nutritional advice or taking some supplements that they thought were expensive urine. I mean, how could I retire when I can get to see that sort of miracle every day?
He is in the business of saving lives. That is what he does.
My gratitude is real, deep felt, heartfelt, you'll pardon the play on words, but it's true. Dr. Stephen Gundry is to me one of a kind.
So when I hear that name, of course I'm going to think my heart, and it also makes me realize that my life would not be possible. I wouldn't be here. The things I've done wouldn't have happened without him.
I mean, it's just been incredibly satisfying for him.
Well, this is really why I became a researcher and went into medicine, to empower people to take control of their own health, to have vibrant health. When I hear from someone who's read the book or has tried one of my products and it's changed their life, I'm like a kid in a candy store. It really touches me at the bottom of my heart.